Middle East conditions are worse than ever. A war in the Strait of Hormuz might destabilize the planet. Every nation, energy market, and citizen affected by this fragile equilibrium is watching. Iran has been warned by US President Donald Trump. The warning is clear, forceful, and unprecedented. The Strait of Hormuz must remain open for international travel, or the US military will use all its power. President Trump spoke more than words. He has warned Iran that the U.S. will strike its oil wells, power stations, and Karg Island if it doesn't follow the regulations. Even Iran's desalination plants, which provide millions with clean water, could be threatened by the impasse, reports suggest. This isn't speculation. The Strait of Hormuz dominates the global oil market. This little waterway transports about 20% of global oil daily. Any issue might affect economies worldwide, from New York to Shanghai, London to Dubai. Analysts expect oil prices to rise significantly, and governments are closely monitoring the situation. Even though things have gotten worse, President Trump indicated conversations are continue. He claims to be talking to a more reasonable regime in Tehran. However, Iranian leaders have rejected direct U.S. talks. Their representative, Esmail Baqiai, branded U.S. demands unrealistic, excessive, and illogical. All communication has been through middlemen. Tehran also accuses the U.S. of secretly contemplating a ground invasion, complicating matters. This public diplomacy military aggressiveness narrative is confusing. When they don't trust each other, they hunt for hidden meanings in every message, troop movement, and speech. Misunderstandings can swiftly lead to conflicts in these situations. Additionally, the U.S. has sent extra troops to the region. Troops, naval fleets, and strategic assets are being mobilized. Each move is tactical and communicates. A warning indicator that could go awry. Because of Israel, things are more complicated. According to reports, Israel bombed key Iranian targets in Tehran and Lebanon. Israeli officials reported that the strikes attacked military targets like Iran's Revolutionary Guard installations. The damage to crowded buildings and disruptions injured civilians, according to reports. People are suffering more. Iran's internet shutdown is 31 days long. Internet access is still unavailable to millions. Communication inside the country is restricted, making coordination and movement difficult. False information fills the gap, causing uncertainty and worry. Energy markets are responding. Oil now costs over $100 a barrel. Countries that buy oil are preparing for higher prices and considering emergency steps to maintain supply. Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz, which can cause fear even with short-term closures or issues. Neighboring nations are acting. Bahrain claims to have shot down hundreds of Iranian drones and missiles since the issue escalated. The UAE claims 11 deaths and hundreds of injuries from ballistic missiles and drones. Every interception reveals how deadly the combat is for people. An industrial building and fuel tanks in Haifa, Israel's northern city, were damaged by missile shrapnel. No deaths were reported early on, but psychological impacts and infrastructure damage reveal how far this ongoing struggle has spread. Lebanon remains tight. Israeli airstrikes have damaged homes and army posts in Beirut's southern suburbs. Hezbollah, a Tehran-backed terrorist group, has responded with strikes, escalating hostilities. Over 1,200 individuals have died since the conflict began in early March. First time in decades, humanitarian crisis, economic pressures, and military movements are colliding. Every report, update, and instant might influence the fight. The stakes are high for everyone, not just Iran, the US, and Israel. As the Middle East worsens, the world watches diplomacy and patience's dangerous limitations. President Donald Trump has claimed that talks with Iran are ongoing, but the situation is increasingly challenging and unfriendly. Iranian officials have stated through intermediaries that they are not talking to the U.S. The Iranian Foreign Ministry's spokesman, Esmail Baqiai, reiterated that Washington's messages are excessive and unfair and that Iran's military posture is defensive. We are being attacked by the military. He adds, so all of our efforts and strength are going toward protecting ourselves. Pakistan may mediate this situation. Pakistan hosted a four-way conference with Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt this weekend. Although there were no major achievements, these meetings demonstrate that regional powers are concerned about a larger battle. Every word and suggestion matters. Escalation or containment may depend on these diplomatic channels. The U.S. remains militarily active despite widespread calls for diplomacy. Recon missions, troop relocations, and fleet placement in the Persian Gulf continue. Analysts say this two-pronged policy of negotiating and military preparation is aimed to pressure Tehran while appearing receptive to talks. It also increases risk because being unclear in high-stakes situations can lead to blunders. The Strait of Hormuz remains the crisis's focal point. Iran has suspended most cargo via this vital waterway as a negotiating chip. Only a few cargo ships, predominantly Iranian but also Thai and Chinese, have passed. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the straits will be reclaimed over time. With U.S. assistance, ships can pass through easily. Navy escorts or international cooperation. This deadlock is affecting global markets. The world's energy supply are vulnerable as oil prices rise above $100 a barrel. Global governments are trying to address economic impacts. To reduce supply shocks, the U.S. has eased sanctions on Russia and Iran, but there are still concerns that the war could create a global economic slump or recession if shipping via the Strait of Hormuz is affected more. Iran attacks are worsening instability. Bahrain's defense forces report stopping 398 drones and 182 missiles since February. The UAE has killed and injured civilians with ballistic missiles and drones. Every attack thwarted indicates how bad the violence is and how hazardous it is for locals. Israel's energy and industrial infrastructure has suffered. A Haifa industrial facility and fuel tanks were hit by missile debris, indicating how the crisis has spread beyond Tehran. There were no immediate deaths, but the psychological and economic impacts were significant. Residents are still puzzled, and things could become worse. Lebanon, too, has suffered. Israeli airstrikes have damaged military and residential areas in Beirut's southern suburbs. Iran's proxy Hezbollah fired rockets against Israel in response. This retribution cycle has killed almost 1,200 people since the battle began. The daily violence, anxiety, and instability families face causes physical and mental damage. Regional powers, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, want de-escalation, complicating matters. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi officially requested immediate action from President Trump to end the violence. He said, "Nobody can stop the war in our region in the Gulf but you," highlighting the dangers facing world and regional leaders. Spain likewise stands firm by refusing allowing U.S. military planes to pass over its airspace during Iran operations. According to Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, the U.S. and Israeli attacks were reckless and illegal and did not target Iran from Spanish locations. The U.S. has warned of trade implications, indicating tensions between the two sides and friends and partners. Military posturing, diplomatic maneuvering, regional involvement, and economic pressure show that the Middle East is no more a local fight. Energy markets, global trade, and millions of lives are suffering from this issue. The world watches, waits, and prays for a war resolution. However, every missile downing, strategic strike, and political statement increases dangers. Every decision made in Tehran, Washington, Jerusalem, or Riyadh affects other nations. It's crucial to understand Iran's perspective as the combat escalates. For Iranian authorities, the fight is about national dignity and independence in the face of foreign pressure, not just border protection. Iranian leaders have repeatedly refused to talk to the U.S. According to spokeswoman Ismail Baqiai, all Washington contacts have been through third parties, and the requests are too high, unrealistic, and illogical. Iran claims its military measures are defensive. A measured response to the U.S.-Israeli attack includes drones, missiles, and strategic strikes. But people suffer from the escalation. Iranians in Tehran and Kazakhstan face missile strikes and power disruptions daily. Physical damage and economic issues have hampered energy, water, and food distribution networks during the war. The 31-day Iranian digital blackout makes people feel even more alone. Millions of Iranians can't access the news or converse freely. Blocking social media and texting apps is common. Rumors and speculation have increased fear and anxiety due to this lack of information. Satellite internet and other workarounds are lifelines for some, but others live in uncertainty every day. Hospitals are stressed. Airstrikes and missile attacks are killing more people and straining the medical system. International aid is hampered by safety and political concerns. Families care for injured people in worsening situations. Children and the elderly are especially at risk because of the physical and mental stress of constant alerts and explosions. Iran's key economic driver, energy infrastructure, has been targeted. President Donald Trump's threats to strike oil wells, power stations, and Karg Island are serious. Oil markets have suffered from Iran's production and distribution infrastructure disruptions. Oil has risen above $100 per barrel, affecting the region and beyond. Countries that import oil are preparing for increased prices. European, Asian, and American governments are watching the Strait of Hormuz since more closures might raise costs and deplete supplies. Energy-dependent nations are preparing for emergencies. These negotiations address strategic oil reserves and new shipping routes. Analysts think even little issues can affect global markets. War deaths are shocking. Even though the Iranian government claims its military actions are organized and targeted, reports state civilian infrastructure like schools, hospitals, and villages is being damaged. The same is happening in Lebanon. Hezbollah's involvement has drawn southern Lebanon into the fight, causing civilian deaths and damage to homes, schools, and hospitals. War in cities is unpredictable, thus families are always afraid. Despite this disarray, Iranian leaders insist on reopening the Strait of Hormuz, ending Israeli attacks on Iranian allies, and being compensated for U.S.-Israeli damage. However, these demands face several obstacles. Due to its military campaign and regional clout, Israel is unlikely to stop attacking security concerns. This standoff and escalating military tensions might prolong the conflict for months. The psychological consequences on people are profound. Sirens, explosions, and uncertainty are commonplace. Families must choose between leaving, risking risky journeys, or staying in their ruined homes. Children and teens have mental health issues as well as physical injuries.